The classroom fell silent the moment he walked in. Luca Moretti, tall, pale, eyes cold as winter glass. He never spoke, never smiled, and no one dared to sit beside him. Everyone knew who his father was. Adrian Moretti, the man who ruled the city's underground with money, fear, and silence. So when the new girl, Cassie Evans, dropped her books beside Luca's seat and quietly took the empty chair, jaws dropped. She didn't know who he was yet. She just saw a boy staring out the window, lost somewhere she couldn't reach. At lunch, when the other kids whispered jokes about the mute freak, Cassie frowned. Something in the way Luca's fingers twitched on the table caught her attention. He wasn't ignoring them. He was signing. Later, she approached him near the lockers. "Hi," she signed, awkwardly. His head snapped up. His eyes widened. "You know sign language?" "Just learning," she replied, smiling. "My little brother's deaf." It was the first real expression she ever saw on his face. Surprise, then relief. From that day they talked, not with voices, but with hands and glances. "How are you?" "Fine." "You like music?" "Yes." "Piano." Each conversation felt like a spark in a place everyone else had left dark. But in school, kindness drew danger. By the third week, 3 boys cornered Cassie behind the gym. "You think you're special now? Talking to him?" One sneered. "He's crazy. You'll end up like him." She tried to step back, but one grabbed her wrist. A shadow moved behind them, then a fist. The fight ended fast, too fast. When the teacher arrived, 2 boys were groaning on the floor, and the third was limping away, nose bleeding. Lucas stood there, chest heaving, knuckles red. Cassie stared, frozen. He looked at her, not angry, just scared she'd be afraid of him too. She wasn't. She reached out and signed, "Are you okay?" His hands trembled. "You shouldn't talk to me anymore." But she shook her head. Then who will? That night, Luca didn't go home right away. He stood by the river, the city lights rippling over the water, thinking about the girl who dared to speak his language. The next morning, everyone knew. Rumors spread fast in the school that feared the Moretti name. But Cassie didn't care. She sat beside him again, as always. This time, when she signed good morning, he didn't look away. They started spending time in the library, at the back, table no one used. Cassie helped him with schoolwork. He taught her faster signs. Sometimes she caught him smiling just a little when she made a mistake. He began drawing in her notebook, small sketches of cats, of the moon, of piano keys. "You play?" she asked. He nodded once. After school, she followed him to the old music room. Dusty, forgotten, but there stood a grand piano. His fingers touched the keys like he was remembering something sacred. The melody was soft, broken in places, but beautiful. When he finished, Cassie whispered, "Why'd you stop playing?" He signed slowly. "After my mother died, I couldn't anymore." The air went still. She wanted to reach for him, but before she could, the door opened. "Luca," a deep voice said. Cassie turned. It was a man in a black suit, one of Adrian Moretti's bodyguards. "Your father's waiting." Luca stood, eyes dimming. He glanced at Cassie once before leaving. That look stayed with her all night. 2 days later, a black car appeared outside the school gates. A man stepped out. "Miss Evans? Mr. Moretti would like to speak with you." Her heart pounded, but she went. The mansion was silent marble and shadows. Inside the study sat Adrian Moretti himself, broad-shouldered, immaculate, his gaze sharp enough to cut through steel. "Sit." Cassie obeyed. "You've been spending time with my son." "Yes, sir." "Why?" She swallowed. "Because he's lonely." He studied her face for a long time. Then he leaned back. "My son doesn't talk to anyone. Not since the accident. He's fragile." "I know," she said softly. "But he's stronger than you think." That made him pause. Something flickered behind his cold eyes. Finally, he said, "Stay away from him." Her throat tightened. "I can't do that." His jaw clenched. "You don't understand what you're walking into." She met his gaze. "Then explain it." He didn't. He just waved his hand, and 2 men appeared to escort her out. Luca didn't come to school the next day. Or the day after. Cassie tried calling, messaging, nothing. By the third day, she'd had enough. She went back to the mansion. The guards hesitated, but one whispered, "He hasn't eaten. Maybe you can help." She found him sitting by the grand piano, hands limp, eyes empty. "Luca," she whispered. He didn't look up. She knelt beside him and signed, "Are you mad at me?" His fingers twitched. He said, "You can't come anymore. He'll hurt you." Her hands shook. "I'm not afraid." He looked at her then, tears trembling in his eyes. "Everyone leaves. I don't want to lose you too." Cassie's heart broke. She reached for his hand. "Then don't let go." And for the first time, he pulled her close. No words, just warmth. For once, the silence felt safe. But silence never lasts long in the Moretti world. One evening, gunfire echoed across the city. A Moretti convoy had been ambushed. The news spread like wildfire. The boss's son was there. Cassie ran through the chaos until she found him, lying on the pavement, blood on his shirt. She dropped beside him. "Luca." He looked up weakly. "You shouldn't be here. I'm not leaving you." Sirens wailed. She pressed her hands over his wound, shaking. "Please, stay with me." He reached up, touched her cheek. "You taught me to talk again." He signed. "Then don't stop now." He smiled faintly before the darkness took him. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and fear. Cassie sat outside the operating room, blood still dried on her hands. Every second felt like an hour. When the door finally opened, a doctor stepped out. "He's alive," he said quietly. But it was close. Cassie's knees gave out. She didn't even realize she was crying until Adrian Moretti's shadow fell across her. He stood there, face pale, eyes hard. But there was something else now. Something human. "You were there?" he asked. Cassie nodded weakly. He needed someone. For the first time, the mafia boss looked away. His voice cracked, barely audible. "His mother, she died in my arms. I promised I'd keep him safe. Instead, I locked him in a cage." Cassie didn't answer. She just said, "Then let him breathe this time." Adrian didn't respond, but the next day, he allowed her to visit. When she entered Luca's hospital room, he was pale, asleep, his hand hooked to an N4 line. The machines beeped steadily, a fragile rhythm keeping him tethered to life. She sat beside him and held his hand. Her lips trembled. "You can't leave me like that. Luca, you still owe me a song." A faint movement. His fingers twitched. Her heart leaped. "Luca?" Slowly, his eyes fluttered open. He looked around, then at her. Tears pooled instantly. "You came," he signed weakly. Cassie laughed through her tears. "Of course I came. You think I'd let you sleep through my lectures?" He smiled, just barely. When the doctor checked in, he called it a miracle that Luca was awake, responsive, healing faster than expected. But Cassie knew what it really was. He just needed someone who refused to give up. Days passed. Cassie never left his side. Sometimes she read aloud. Other times she just sat in silence, her fingers tracing words across his palm. One morning, she woke to a soft sound. Her name. "Cassie." She froze. The voice was rough, quiet, uncertain, but real. Her head snapped up. "Luca?" He blinked, almost shyly. I said it right." She covered her mouth with both hands, tears streaming down. "You spoke." He nodded slowly. "You made me want to." She leaned forward, hugging him tightly, laughing and crying at the same time. The doctors called Adrian. When he entered and heard his son speak for the first time in years, the man who'd built an empire of silence had to turn away to hide his tears. Weeks later, Luca returned home. The mansion didn't feel as cold anymore. Adrian started joining him for meals, asking about his therapy, even listening to his music. Sometimes Cassie joined them, and the three would share quiet dinners that somehow felt louder than words. One evening, Adrian stopped Cassie before she left. "You've done something no doctor, no priest, no friend ever could," he said. "You gave my son his voice back." Cassie smiled softly. He always had it. He just needed someone to listen. Adrian looked down and said, "Maybe it's time I start listening too." Spring came. The school year ended, but Cassie and Luca still met every afternoon on the rooftop. It was their place, high above the noise, where silence felt sacred again. This time, the sunset painted the sky gold. Luca stood by the railing, wind ruffling his hair. Cassie joined him. "You okay?" He nodded, fingers moving gracefully. "Better, because you didn't give up." She smiled. "You didn't let me." He hesitated, then pulled something from his pocket, a small silver pendant. "Here," he said softly. She opened it. Inside was a single engraved sign, the one for forever. Her throat tightened. "Luca," he took her hand, eyes warm, steady. "You're not alone anymore," she signed. He smiled, lips trembling, and replied, not with hands, but with words. "I know." Below them, the city hummed. Sirens, cars, chaos. But up here, there was peace. He had spent years locked in silence, believing the world had nothing left to say to him. And then one girl walked in, brave enough to speak without a voice. She didn't heal him with pity. She reached him with patience, with laughter, with the kind of understanding that doesn't need words. Luca Moretti, the mute son of the mafia boss, had finally found something his father's empire never could. Someone who listened. And for the first time in years, his world was no longer quiet.